Now, you mentioned leadership, and you have played a leadership role here. How would you describe your leadership? What was important for you?
Well, I've learned a lot, but in the beginning, the more invested I became personally in where we were headed, the more anxious I was that we'd be successful in making this work. And that tension of, okay, we're on to something here, and there's a possibility that we can open something up, is really important. But that requires a commitment to say, okay, we're going to head down this road, and we're going to risk believing that we can actually get somewhere with it. And there's an anxiety because, we're a rocky ship with all kinds of complex issues amongst us. And so trying to find a way personally through my own struggles, and sort of to find ways to set that aside, or at least be real about what was going on for Ken in a group of people, and commit to keep moving in that direction, and also to do it with some integrity. So bottom line, some commitment to being absolutely and rigorously accountable for what we're doing, to be able to accept that we don't have all the answers, so there's lots of stuff that we don't really know about, and let's not pretend that we know about things that we don't know about. And that's not always easy to do. In some ways it almost gets harder as people kind of set you on a pedestal and say, okay, you're it, because you're expected to sort of know, but the fact is we don't really understand very much. We only have a little bit of insight into some things. And recently, for example, we're talking through this issue of the mess in the lanes, and how we can clean up the city. And one of the ideas of the city engineering department is to lock down the dumpsters, and that for us would take we'd take a significant hit, not just in the business, the binners directly would take the hit. And so that's a concern for us. But we also know that there are some real issues around the mess in our lanes, the garbage in the lanes, and it's in large part not binners that are responsible for that. But nonetheless, we're out there invisible, and so it's easy to sort of point at that issue. And so we have to, as a first step, acknowledge that there are some real problems amongst us. Apart from even if the majority of the problem isn't about us, what are our issues that we need to come to grips with? And that's very hard to do. It's very hard to sort of look at ourselves and say, how can we move from how we're doing things now into the future? Because I think I know what we need to do to change, but I don't necessarily know. And the group needs to sort of come to grips with it. And it isn't just Ken that needs to change. It's thousands of people together that need to find a way that we can change. So each little step is really important. One of the things that we do know is people like being identified as being a part of this group. And, in a way you think, well, it's kind of cornball, they would like the ball cap and the T-shirt and having a little ID card and whatever. But people like that.
Identity.
Yeah, they like to be able to feel that they are more than just that sort of street person that's scavenging through the garbage. And they are, of course. They're individual human beings and lovely ones at that. But being recognized as connected to something that's more than what they see themselves as, which is tragic in a sense. I mean, it always amazes me how people love that aspect of, I'm a part of this. And simple little sort of buttons, beads, and banners attract people in. And that's the part that amazes me, not that we have this need to belong, but that these little symbols are so important as how people identify. But nonetheless, we know that, for example, is a hook for people to sort of say, okay, we can come together, and that coming together and struggling through the things that we need to change together is kind of, again, this peer group, being able to sort of put pressure on each other to conform in a way. I mean, conformity is awful in one sense, but in another sense there's some real value in people saying, okay, we've accepted some standard of behavior and conduct and how we go about our lives. Without that, probably society could be much more chaotic. But we have some disorder issues in the inner city that we need to come to grips with, and I don't think we've nearly tapped into the energy of the folks that are a part of that street population that could be, the people that, and will in the end have to be the people that start to address those kinds of issues. Short of like locking us all up or putting us in a barge and sinking it in the harbor and whatever, I don't think we're in that kind of a society. I know that we're not in that kind of a society. But then, we don't want to get into a severely reactive circumstance that doesn't solve the problems we have either. So we need to come up with, alternatives and test them out and take those little steps and discover what works and what doesn't. It's kind of like, a touchy-feely process.